But let's start today in Minnesota, where, of course, people have been killed for absolutely no reason, and it looked for a while as if that might prompt a terrible escalation of this kind of conduct. What's happening, Simon?
Well, a climb down, James, and we saw yesterday the president's border czar, Tom Homan, who, of course, has been sent to Minnesota to handle the growing uproar and fury over the brutality meted out to people on the streets of Minneapolis, St. Paul by the president's own Border Patrol and ICE agents. Mr. Homan announced yesterday an end to Operation Metro Surge, the catastrophic, I think it is fair to say now, paramilitary operation authorized by the president and, of course, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, that saw the killing of 2 American citizens in January, Renee Good and Alex Pretti, needlessly shot to death on the streets of Minneapolis. In the case of Renee Good by ICE agents, in the case of Alex Pretti by Border Patrol agents. That gave rise to fury on the streets of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Tens of thousands of protesters taking to the streets, urging the federal government to row back. Donald Trump probably could have withstood the pressure from protesters in Minneapolis, but if you look at the broader polling, he could not have withstood the slide that in popularity for his implementation of his mass deportation policies, that those 2 slayings in particular of American citizens who were doing nothing wrong, certainly nothing illegal at the times of their deaths, and certainly were not, as various US government officials have characterized them, domestic terrorists. We've seen in polling 60% of American voters saying that they disapprove of the manner in which the mass deportations policy has been implemented, and so Donald Trump has rowed back, engaged in this U-turn. They tried to suggest to core supporters of the president that they're still absolutely committed to all of this. The ICE and Border Patrol agents, Mr. Homan suggested yesterday, are simply going to be sent to other jurisdictions. But you can definitely see weakness in the president's current position, not just over the brutality that we've seen in Minneapolis, but more broadly, this has been a week in which a White House that never likes to evince any sign of vulnerability or weakness has suffered a number of pretty significant reverses.
It's hard to know what else he can do if this isn't going to work. Even if he were to launch military action against Iran, a brilliant American journalist was explaining to me yesterday that the average American isn't going to give him any breaks on that. The average American isn't going to change their view of whether or not he's doing a good job if he decides to go in and kill a few or kill a lot of Iranians, whether they're members of the regime or not. Is he running out of road, or is that too optimistic an analysis?
Well, I think he's had a very bad week. I think there's no question that this has been the first week, really, since his return to power in January of last year, where you've started looking and saying, you know, is the bloom going off the rose here? Is the old Kabuki act finally running out of road with his core supporters? I mean, this has been a week where we've seen key influencers with Donald Trump's own MAGA movement calling for the resignation or firing of Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, after her appalling, disdainful, contemptuous appearance on Capitol Hill. Not just contemptuous to the entire concept of checks and balances that lie at the heart of the requirement of members of Congress to hold cabinet members accountable for what they have been doing in office, but contempt, of course, that was demonstrated to the survivors and victims of Jeffrey Epstein, that extraordinary moment where Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington State challenged Pam Bondi to turn around and apologize to Epstein victims for her failure to give them any opportunity to talk to her or other officials within her Department of Justice. And she not only refused, but, throughout that hearing, engaged in sophomoric conduct in an effort to kind of just push back at the notion that she should in any way be accountable. We've seen a piece in the Wall Street Journal today, devastating piece, about the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and her associate at the top of the Department of Homeland Security, longtime Trump aide Corey Lewandowski, that I think is only going to fuel anxiety within the MAGA movement about how long they can remain in post. We've seen Trump's pliant US attorney here in Washington, D.C., Jeanine Pirro, former Fox News star, unable to secure an indictment against 6 Democrat lawmakers that the president wanted to accuse of sedition because they had made a video warning members of the armed forces not to accept orders that are unlawful. For that, they wanted to pursue sedition charges against them. So, there's definitely been indications this week in a whole raft of other areas as well that the old 3-card trick might not be winning for the House at the moment. But does military action against Iran or some other distraction give him the opportunity to change the storyline and try and reverse the sliding numbers? He's always done it before, and you can't rule it out.
No, you can't. And the other thing that you can't rule out is that the Republicans, we could talk, of course, about Democrats failing to find either leadership or purpose, but I'm fascinated by whether or not the latest examples of complete contempt for everything from the Constitution down, demonstrated most recently by Noem and Bondi. But it's like a kind of, there's a quintet, isn't there, of Noem, Bondi, Hegseth, Miller and Kennedy, all sort of come from a similar place of hideousness, really, not to put too fine a point on it, but crucially contempt for the Constitution. Naively, and I think you're in this category as well, not that long ago I would have expected Republicans to be up in arms, and that's not happening still.
Yeah, I think hideousness is exactly the right word. I was thinking before we went on air, what's the right descriptive? Are they ghastly, hideous? What do you use? I mean, it is a hideous grouping. But the problem he's got is that the minute any of these people leaves the inner circle, the whole house of cards can fall apart. If you're going to get rid of Pam Bondi, you've got to get rid of Kristi Noem. If you're going to get rid of Kristi Noem, you've got to deal with issues like Stephen Miller's extraordinary sway over the President of the United States in his position as Deputy White House Chief of Staff and chief ideologue behind the entire operation. There were all sorts of rumours in December that there was going to be a big cabinet reshuffle in January, and it hasn't come. And I think it hasn't come because he knows that the minute you start tinkering with one piece, chinks in the armour are going to leave him himself very exposed. So he continues surrounding himself with these ghastly figures who overcompensate. I mean, Pam Bondi was overcompensating. Yeah. Kristi Noem in this Wall Street Journal expose, all trying to give him what they think he wants. And in the case of Ms. Noem, she's discovered that what he didn't want was American citizens being shot in cold blood on the streets of Minneapolis.
Well, I mean, until he did, or whatever the opposite of that is. If he thought that it was going to play well, he did until he didn't he? He did until he didn't he? I'm writing tongue twisters now.